Welcome, my friends, to a new episode of Ways of Teacher Training. And in this episode, we're going to talk about exploratory language. So first, let's see what exploratory language means. So let's see what Longman Dictionary says about explore. And it says, to discuss or think about something carefully. Love that. Let's see what Cambridge says about explore. To think or talk about something in order to find out more about it. Now, so exploratory language, my friends, is the type of language that would get people to think and discover on their own. So when we say to teacher trainers, it's very important when you give feedback to other teachers that you use exploratory language. And what I mean here is that you need to encourage those teachers to think and discover during your feedback sessions. So feedback is not a matter of spoon feeding. It's not a matter of giving your candidates everything they need on a silver plate. No. It's about getting those candidates to be more independent, encouraging those candidates to think more so that they become able later after the course is over to reflect on what they do and how they teach on their own. Now let's move to exploratory language versus judgmental language. Now, one of the advantages of using exploratory language is that usually candidates accept it and feel that your feedback is a kind of a dialogue between you and them. And they feel that you're trying to help them and it's a discussion. While judgmental language might cause a lot of problems, it's because candidates would feel the opposite. They would feel that you're giving them orders. They will feel that you're kind of criticizing them all the time. That's why we always encourage teacher trainers in the feedback sessions to use exploratory language. Someone might say, Shadi, but what if my candidates were unable to discover on their own? What if they were unable to find out the information I want them to find or discover what went wrong in the lesson? Then I would say, and finally, give it straight. And you would have to use, of course, judgmental language. But don't make judgmental language your first resort. That's what I'm talking about. Like, don't make your feedback based on judgmental language all the time. Start with exploratory language, and finally, if you have to give it straight to candidates because you want to help them, then fair enough. Now, let me give you an example of how judgmental language looks like. Look at this. You were not well prepared today for your lesson. This is judgmental. How do I know? Think about it. Did my teacher have to think? The answer is no. I'm telling my teacher, I'm not asking him. So teachers don't have to think or explore or discover when you say something like that. Look at this one. I noticed that you kept looking at your lesson plan a lot. Why is that? Now, I am stating a fact and then asking a question. Now my teacher needs to think, why did he have to go back to the lesson plan too many times in the lesson? And now he would give an answer. So in exploratory language, always encourage your teachers to think and reflect and give you the answer. Right. Now, let's go to structuring exploratory language. And I would say, my friends, in order to structure exploratory language, you only need two simple steps. Number one, state a consequence or a fact. Number two, ask a question. Let's see. You need to ask ICQs more consistently so that your instructions become clearer. Now, what is left for your teacher to think about? Nothing. You just gave your teacher the answer straight away. But not with exploratory language. Look at this. I noticed that some students were confused in activity 1 and they didn't know what to do. That's a consequence or a fact that happened in a classroom. Now look at the question. How could you have made things clearer for them? Ha ha ha. Now he needs to think and reach, the conclusion that ICQs should have been used. Another example. You were pointing at the students when nominating them. You should have used an open palm or called the names. Pointing seems really aggressive. Now, again, is there anything left to think about, to come up with? The answer is no. But look at exploratory language. I noticed that when nominating students, you were pointing at them. What is the disadvantage of this? Are there other techniques for nominating? And now the teacher needs to think. And as we said, what if the teacher was unable to reach the answer because he's a novice teacher or, he's got zero experience? Give it to him, but encourage your teacher to think first. Lovely. Now, when can we use judgmental comments? And as I said, when you feel that your trainee is unable to get it on his or her own, then yes, you might need to say it straightforward, and that's what you should have done here. Okay, lovely. Now, let's go to some situations where you can compare judgmental language and exploratory language. Look at situation 1. We have here, the candidate clarified the target vocabulary, which means that it's a vocabulary lesson. But after elicitation, there were no concept checking questions, which means that the candidate didn't teach meaning. He jumped from elicitation to pronunciation. The candidate moved directly to pronunciation and form. Now, let's look at judgmental language here. If you give feedback with judgmental language, it will sound like this one. Why haven't you asked any CCQs? Boom, end of story. Now, the teacher knows that there was a problem with CCQs, but exploratory language would go like this. What are the 3 elements of clarifying meaning? And then maybe B will see contextualization, elicitation, and concept checking questions. Then A would say, lovely. Can you give me a concrete example of how you did this from your lesson? Now, the candidate would need to bring some examples from the lesson and take the tutor through them, saying, oh, I started with this and I did that. And then through these examples, the tutor can clarify what was missing through a discussion between the tutor and the candidate. Lovely. Now let's see an example of me and Rami. And Rami is a teacher trainer at British E-Training Centre. And I asked him to appear on this video and play a candidate so that we can give you a kind of a live example of how exploratory language can be used. So let's watch this. So Rami, now let's talk a bit about the clarification stage in today's lesson. What style did you use today in teaching vocabulary?
I just followed the CECDW technique. I started by setting a context, then eliciting, then checking concept, and then drilling, and then I wrote it. Finally, the last thing I wrote it on the board.
Interesting. And can you give me a concrete example of what you did today? Like, take me through one of the words you taught today.
Today I taught the word workaholic, and yes, I think this were in taught today. I set the context using a picture, and students told me there were, and then I wrote it, and finally I wrote it on the board.
And now, in that sequence you told me about, do you think that there was something missing?
No.
Okay, so let's go one by one. Workaholic, you started with what?
Setting the context first by, yes, I used a picture.
And I loved that picture. Wonderful, my friend. It was really effective. And yes, and then you did what?
And then I tried to elicit. Some students said how working, and one of the students said workaholic, and it was the right word.
Excellent. And after students gave you workaholic, what did you do?
I just did some drilling, like I let the students drill.
Now, wait a minute here. There is something between elicitation and drilling that you should have done. What is it?
I think they've told me the word, so they know it very well.
Yeah, but wait a minute. When someone says the word, that doesn't mean that everybody understands it. So, so what do you think you should have done? What do you think is missing from the CECDW here?
I felt that they have understood the word, and they have told me, and one of them, I generated a good discussion about the picture, and one of them said how working, and then another one said workaholic, which was the right word. So I don't feel that I've missed anything or something.
Okay, so let's see. So the first C is for what?
Secondary context or context.
Okay, context. Contextualize it. You did it with a picture. Second, elicitation, you got the word from them. Now, what you dropped, my friend, was the concept checking part. Now,
but they, I felt that they know it.
Well, that is the problem. Now, when two know the word, it doesn't mean, okay, that everyone else knows the word. Also, saying the word doesn't mean that they understand all the elements included in meaning. For example, let me give you a quick one. Like, when you elicit, the adjective fat, some students would give it to you if you use pictures or body language, if we're talking about, lower levels. But saying the word fat doesn't mean that they understand it's a bad word to describe people.
We should say overweight or something.
Exactly. So there are other elements to the meaning that the teacher would need to clarify. It's not only about one student said, because one student said fat, but maybe tomorrow this student can say that about his dad, which is not nice. Like say my dad is fat, because he does not know that fat, is not a nice word. And nice words can be like something like overweight or large. But so this is the idea. So when we start with the contextualization, when you move to the elicitation, after elicitation, boom, concept checking questions must come in, right, my friends?
Okay, yes.
So and that's what I want you, to bear in mind next time when you're teaching vocabulary, right? So
okay.
Now another situation, and let's read it together. It says your candidate spent too much time on the pre-teaching vocabulary stage and had no time left for a post-reading task, speaking or writing. Which means that this is a receptive skill lesson where the candidate heavily focused on vocabulary, and that affected the last stage, which is post-reading, where you can either deliver a speaking task, a writing task, or a text analysis task. So, judgmental feedback would sound like this. You spent a lot of time on the vocabulary pre-teaching stage, and this affected your post-reading stage. There was no time left for students to speak. Now, exploratory would sound this way. I noticed that you skipped the last speaking task. Why? Then the candidate would say, for example, time was not enough. And then I would say, so which part in your lesson do you think took more time than it should be? So he would say, maybe the reading part? And I would say, I don't think so. Reading was your main aim, and I believe your pace was appropriate. So, again, the conversation keeps developing this way till my candidate is able to spot that the problem was in the pre-teaching stage. Lovely. Now, me and Rami, again, let's watch this. Okay, so Rami, I noticed during the lesson that there was no time left for the speaking task. Why do you think this happened?
I think I should plan for like a 50 or 55-minute lesson. I had like 4 or 5 stages before the speaking, and they took like the most of the time, and I didn't find enough time for the speaking, the last part. However, I thought that written my lesson plan that it should take between 10 to 15 minutes, but it didn't happen.
Okay, so if you look at your lesson now, right, and you know that you were given only 45 minutes, so we were unable to give you like 55 minutes to cover that. But thinking of the 45 minutes you were given, which stage in your lesson do you think took a lot of time?
I think it was the pre-teaching vocabulary stage, and I devoted like 15 minutes for this stage because I thought the students need to know every word that may block the understanding while reading, and I thought that this was like a must. Students must learn everything, and I've thought about giving them a control practice or a control activity after they finish. I just wanted to be sure that they are able to use the words by some accuracy-based activities.
And was vocabulary your main aim?
No.
So what was your main aim?
Reading.
Good. And if reading is your main aim, how much should you focus in on vocabulary?
I've got that. I focused. It took time. I've got that. Yes. For a while, I forgot that reading was my main aim, and I should proceed with reading practice and then the speaking practice.
Okay. So now here is a good question. Now you said that you took a lot of time clarifying vocabulary. Now in what other ways could you have used in order to shorten the time for the pre-teaching stage?
I could be using like a matching activity or something, and once I find any question, thank you very much. But this has happened because I was not fully sure about the students' acquisition of the new language. I've just tried to apply or to let the students proceed with another control practice after they finish, which I think it was not that necessary for them. Once they have a question, or once they had a question, I could clarify directly, like having a direct teaching for the word. You're right, because I think the control practice took about 5 to 6 minutes. Especially, I insisted on giving them like feedback after they finished the control practice, which was like a very time-consuming thing.
Okay. So speaking now of pre-teaching blocking words, okay. Now, was it enough to give them a matching activity, or was it a good idea to follow this matching activity with, more practice focusing on vocabulary, and why?
No, I don't think now it's a good idea, because I felt it was a very time consuming, and I felt that I didn't have enough time to let the students respond orally, or just to respond to the topic they've read and express their ideas and thoughts about what they have found. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, I totally agree, because this time could have been used for the speaking task to the very end. Now, another situation, my friend, here. And it goes like this. Your candidate has a speaking lesson. Students only speak for 5 minutes and he finishes the lesson 10 minutes early. He should have asked the students to repeat the activity with a different partner or prepared an extra speaking activity. Now, judgmental feedback would sound like this. Your students spoke for only 5 minutes. You should have asked them to repeat the activity with a different partner or given them an extra speaking task to do. But exploratory language would sound this way. I noticed that students only spent 5 minutes speaking. How could you have extended their speaking time? And then B might say, I'm not sure. They finish the course book activity and the conversation develops. Again, me and Rami, let's see this. Let's go. But I noticed that during the speaking activity, the students only spoke for kind of 5 minutes. Do you think that 5 minutes would be enough for a lesson that has a speaking as a main aim? What do you think?
I think this speaking was exactly from the course book, and I found that the students finished early, and then they stopped speaking after they finished. And I felt it was like, okay, they finished the task, and this is as they followed the instructions. They asked it and answered, and then it's finished. So I didn't find any problem for that.
So let me tell you something. Yeah, I agree with you on that part. Yeah, I mean, they really did the activity in a nice way, and I give you that. It's really, really nice. But what I'm asking about, how could we have extended that time more? What other options could you have used in order to make this time longer?
I don't know. And like I felt they spoke, but I don't know what could be done for an extension or something.
Okay, so look, my friend, let me give you 2 ideas here. One that can be prepared at home and one that can be done immediately in the classroom. At home, if you look at the activity and you feel that, that might not be enough, then try to prepare another activity, another speaking activity that you would use when the students finish too early, so that it would cover that time. Because as you noticed today, you finished 10 minutes early, while the students only spoke 5 minutes. So that we could have used that time for students to speak more. So be ready with an activity, and maybe in your lesson plan, you can put that activity under the title of a flexi stage. And when you come to this stage, you don't have to teach it if you don't need it. And I will understand that when I look at your lesson plan and I say that this is a flexi stage. I know that, yeah, this is plan B for Rami, you know? That's one thing. Another thing you could have done, as long as they did this activity in pair work, then one simple thing you could have done is just change the pairs and get them to repeat the activity. And repeating would help them so much for a reason. It's because when people repeat an activity, especially a speaking activity, they tend to be more accurate. Because when they try it for the second time, their minds are not looking for ideas. Their minds will be doing only one job, which is structuring the language. So that also would help them. Now, my friends, let's go to exploratory language in written feedback. And let me show you an example of a feedback sheet to one of my level 5 teacher training candidates. Let's have a look at this sheet and see how I put exploratory language on my feedback sheet. Let's go. So here we are, and look at this. Look at what is said here. I said, listen to the following track. How can you improve your responses to students' answers during content feedback? which means that I was recording my candidate. And of course, I asked my candidates for permission first. And then I record the lesson, and then sometimes I cut pieces from that recording and give them those pieces along with the feedback sheet. And they go listen to this track and try to discover. So now, read my question one more time, and see my exploratory language. Listen to the following track. I want you to listen. How can you improve your responses to students' answers during content feedback? I was trying to get him to notice that he was not showing students genuine interest in their answers. Like he would ask someone, where would you like to stay? And then he says, in a house, not a flat. And then he wouldn't ask a follow-up question. He would just move to the other candidate. Right. Now let's read another example of exploratory language here. Listen to your instructions for elicitation. Are they necessary? Why or why not? And again, that's another track that I will get him to listen to. And look at what I said. Listen to your instructions for elicitation. Because usually, this candidate, before eliciting, he would do this. Like he would hold a picture and they say, now I'm going to ask you about this picture and I want you to answer my question. And then he would say, what is this? Now why? All what you needed is to show the picture and ask, what is this? End of story. Good. Another one. And then I said after that, please listen to the vocabulary teaching track. Did you follow the CECDW sequence? How can you set up a clearer and shorter context for the word membership? It was because I felt that the context for the word membership took about 2 minutes. It was too long. So I wanted him to listen and discover that on his own. Right. Then finally, please look at the following picture of your board. How comfortable do you think students will be looking at your vocabulary? And I know you're confused now and you're saying, oh, we don't see a board, we see a picture of an escalator. Yeah, that's the problem, because he was displaying this picture from the overhead projector and at the same time writing on the board, so students were unable to see anything. And this is why I took this picture, I added it to my feedback sheet, and I asked them this exploratory question. How comfortable do you think students will be looking at your vocabulary? Right. So again, my friends, to wrap up, it's very important for a teacher trainer to use exploratory language when giving feedback. This would help this trainer reduce the level of resistance coming from candidates, and also this would turn your feedback from a monologue into a dialogue, a kind of a discussion where your teachers learn more, discover more, and explore more. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you very much, my friends. And hey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I'll be down there in the comments if you have any question. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.